Well, Tom Green is a really good comic now. And Tom Green, was doing movies and all that other stuff and sketches, the Tom Green Show. And now he's doing stand-up.
Well, he's a super imaginative, very, creative guy.
Yeah. He's also super unique. He's also the main reason why I did this podcast.
The Tom Green Show?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
But
the online one.
His talk show that he did.
Yeah.
I remember I went to his house. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you got wires running through your living room. He had servers. I mean, he had, servers there and everything.
Yeah.
Like, a whole room dedicated to hard drives and servers. He had some crazy internet connection.
Damn.
It was wild.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you just got to figure out a way to monetize this. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the future. No executives. No one to tell you what to do. I think I started doing versions of web shows after that. And then the other one that got me into it was doing the Opie and Anthony show. Because it was such a hang.
Totally.
It was just a hang. There was no organization to it at all.
Yeah.
Bunch of funny guys,
People
Patrice
popping in
and
and out.
Voss and Norton and everyone just hanging out.
Yeah. Shitting on each other. That was the predecessor. That was
That was the predecessor
That was
of the
the thing.
podcast.
Yeah.
Especially when they went to XM.
It's so funny to hear the clips from when they were on terrestrial radio, and they're like, easy, Patrice, and they're like, oh wait, he can't say, he can't say
anything.
Yeah. But it is it's fascinating. But yeah, I guess that's what the radio guys were thinking, But I agree with you. You should try and understand what's going on, not feel threatened.
Yeah, well, I get why you would feel threatened. I just don't think it's productive.
Yeah.
It's just like, how's it going to help you to shit on something that is obviously killing it?
Once you're already successful, though, people get set in ways, and
Yeah, well, especially if you're like a Howard Stern type dude. You're the biggest guy ever in radio, and then something's coming along that's taking over radio. Like, no way.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Although I will say, none of us have an awesome black midget that we bring on.
You couldn't anymore.
Beetlejuice rocks.
Imagine if he bailed on his contract. He said, "You know what? I got $1 billion in the bank.
Yeah.
I'm firing all the executives. I'm buying a warehouse.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just build a wild ass studio in there and just do podcasts.
Yeah.
And go back to Howard Stern from the '80s.
Yeah, but at a certain point, you're not that guy anymore either.
That's true.
Your temperament changes. It's like once
he got real scared of the virus.
So you started doing radio just to promote when you started headlining?
I did a little bit before. I mean, you would do it anytime anybody would want you on a radio show.
It was a big...
Yeah, but it was almost always when you were doing a road gig, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the first ones I did were in Connecticut when I was living in New York. You get gigs in Connecticut.
Of course.
You'd have to go and do a literal tiny town morning show that reached 5 miles. In each direction.
Yeah.
But that's how you got people to come see you.
Yeah.
It was like the pioneer days.
Totally.
It was literally you're on a covered wagon making your way across the country.
When you were coming up, was it right after a boom and it was kind of down? Or
there was a
good?
boom in the 80s. So the boom in the 80s was 84 to 88. And I came around in 88.
Okay.
And back then, it was really strange. There was a bunch of comics that really were lounge acts, but not a lounge act like a lounge act comedian, like a lounge act comic. They weren't even really comedians.
Interesting.
They would just talk about things with a comedy timing.
Right.
There was nothing there. There was a bunch of these guys.
Because it just could sustain that. Comedy was so successful.
Ha, 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 ha. They would just laugh. And so they would pick premises that other people had covered, and some of them were arrogant.
Yeah,
it was bizarre.
Yeah.
But they had this weird sort of way of delivering material that sounded like they were comedians. They had their sleeves rolled up. They would talk about things.
Little blazer.
God, there was a lot of them, man. And then
doing Seinfeld's cadence, but with nothing underneath it.
Something like that. Yeah. They had a way of talking that made them sound like a comedian.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of them, man. And some of them were headliners. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was like the whole world wanted comedy.
Right.
And then it kind of died off. And then it died off, and a bunch of the clubs went under, and all the TV shows dried up. There used to be Evening at the Improv and MTV Half Hour Comedy Hour and all these different shows where you could go on and you could do 5 minutes. And if you killed, all of a sudden you're headline on the road. You might have seen him on MTV's Half Hour Comedy Club.
So that's TikTok back then.
Something like that.
It's a 5-minute spot.
Something like that. Yeah. And then you could do the road. And so you wanted to have some sort of a credit. If they saw you, Evening at the Improv. Oh, let's go see him.
Yeah.
And then, you had a credit. And hopefully you could put together 45 minutes and close.
Yeah.
But there was, it was so many comedians. But it wasn't the quality that there are today. Not even close. There are so many at the top end. Back then at the top end, There wasn't that. There was a dozen.
Like the NBA in the 50s.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, 5 of those guys could play today.